Most people wake up every day already tired, not because life is heavy, but because their hearts are carrying questions they never stop to ask. They chase success, relationships, money, and validation, yet there is a quiet emptiness that follows them everywhere. And the strange part is this: they assume this emptiness is normal. They think this restlessness is just how life is meant to feel. But what if it isn't? What if that ache in your chest, that feeling of being lost even when everything seems fine, is actually a signal, a reminder that you were created for something far greater than survival, routine, and applause? Today, we are going to talk about the truth that most people never pause long enough to confront, the real purpose of life, and why ignoring it costs us peace, clarity, and meaning itself. Most people are not living, they are reacting. They wake up to alarms, scroll through other people's lives, rush through obligations, chase deadlines, and collapse into sleep only to repeat the same cycle again. And somewhere in between the noise, there's a quiet question that keeps knocking, but it is constantly ignored. Why am I here? Not what do I do for a living? Not what do people think of me? Not what will make me successful in their eyes? But why do I exist at all? This question is dangerous to a distracted heart, because once you truly ask it, you can no longer live the same way again. So most people silence it. They fill their lives with achievements, entertainment, relationships, and endless goals, hoping that meaning will accidentally appear along the way. But meaning does not come from motion. You can be moving nonstop and still be completely lost. The tragedy is not that people fail in life. The tragedy is that they succeed at the wrong things. They climb ladders that are leaning against the wrong walls. They spend decades perfecting careers, bodies, reputations, and lifestyles, only to reach moments of stillness where they realize none of it answered the ache inside. This is why so many people feel empty even when they have everything they thought they wanted. The heart was not designed to be satisfied by temporary things. It was not created to be fed by likes, applause, wealth, or status. When you give the heart what it was never meant to live on, it will starve even while appearing full. From a very young age, we are trained to ask the wrong questions. What do you want to be when you grow up? How much will you earn? How will you stand out? How will you win? Rarely do we ask, who are you becoming? What is shaping your heart? What is anchoring your soul? Life becomes a competition instead of a journey of meaning. Purpose becomes confused with productivity. Busyness is mistaken for significance. And slowly, without realizing it, people begin to define their worth by how useful they are to the world instead of understanding why they were placed in the world in the first place. The real danger is not ignorance. The real danger is assumption. People assume they already know what life is about. They assume it is about happiness, freedom, self-expression, or success. But happiness comes and goes. Freedom without direction becomes chaos. Self-expression without truth becomes ego. Success without purpose becomes a prison. If the purpose of life was simply to be happy, then pain would mean failure. But pain is unavoidable. Loss is unavoidable. Struggle is unavoidable. So a purpose that collapses in the face of suffering was never strong enough to begin with. There are moments when the illusion cracks. A loss you did not expect. A failure you did not plan for. A night where you stare at the ceiling and realize that everything you are chasing could disappear in an instant. These moments are not punishments. They are invitations. Invitations to wake up. Invitations to ask deeper questions. Invitations to return to something real. But most people rush to patch the cracks instead of looking through them. They distract themselves again. They numb themselves again. They stay asleep because awakening requires responsibility. Knowing your purpose changes how you suffer. It changes how you love. It changes how you choose. Without purpose, suffering feels meaningless, love feels fragile, and choices feel random. With purpose, suffering becomes refining, love becomes intentional, and choices become acts of alignment. Purpose is not something you invent. It is something you uncover. It is not built around your desires, but around your design. And everything that is designed has intention behind it. Nothing meaningful is accidental. Look at how much energy people invest in things that will not last. Bodies that will age, wealth that can vanish, opinions that will change, approval that is conditional, and yet they neglect the one thing that will outlive all of it, the soul. The soul is not impressed by what impresses the world. It is not nourished by what excites the ego. It longs for truth, connection, and meaning. When it is ignored, it protests through anxiety, restlessness, and emptiness. These are not flaws. They are symptoms. They are signs that the soul is starving. The world teaches you to look outward for purpose. Look at your achievements. Look at your image. Look at your influence. But purpose is not found outward. It is revealed inward. Silence scares people because silence removes distractions. And when distractions are removed, truth becomes loud. This is why people fear being alone with their thoughts. Because deep down, they know there is something they have been avoiding. Something that demands more than comfort. Something that demands sincerity. Living without knowing your purpose is like reading random pages of a book and assuming you understand the story. You might enjoy certain chapters, you might hate others, but without knowing the author's intent, the narrative feels confusing. Life makes sense only when you understand why it was written. And when you misunderstand the purpose, you misinterpret everything else. You misinterpret hardship as abandonment. You misinterpret patience as weakness. You misinterpret obedience as restriction. You misinterpret humility as loss. But when purpose becomes clear, everything realigns. People often say they want peace, but they live in constant contradiction. They want peace while chasing things that steal it. They want peace while feeding desires that never say enough. They want peace without surrender. But peace is not found in control. It is found in alignment. Alignment between who you are, why you exist, and how you live. When these are disconnected, no amount of success can compensate. The majority of people are not evil, lost, or hopeless. They are simply distracted. Distracted by noise that feels urgent. Distracted by standards that feel important. Distracted by fears that feel real. And distraction is one of the most effective ways to keep someone from their purpose because it does not look dangerous. It looks normal. It looks like everyone else. But normal is not the same as meaningful, and common is not the same as correct. You were not created randomly. You were not placed here to just pass time, pay bills, and be forgotten. Your life has weight. Your existence has intention. But intention requires response. Purpose is not activated by knowing it exists. It is activated by living in accordance with it. And that requires courage. Courage to question what you were taught. Courage to step away from what everyone applauds. Courage to choose depth in a world addicted to surface. When people do not know their purpose, they become easily shaken. Criticism breaks them. Loss defines them. Failure destroys their identity. Because when your identity is built on temporary things, it will collapse when those things are threatened. But when your identity is rooted in purpose, you are not erased by loss. You are refined by it. You are not defined by what you have. You are defined by why you exist. Many people are waiting for life to give them clarity before they commit. But clarity often comes after commitment. The heart opens when sincerity appears. Purpose does not reveal itself to spectators. It reveals itself to seekers, to those willing to be honest about their confusion, to those willing to admit they do not have all the answers, to those willing to sit with discomfort instead of escaping it. The real purpose of life is not something that fits neatly into a slogan. It is something that transforms how you see everything else. It redefines success. It reorders priorities. It humbles the ego. It disciplines desire. It anchors the heart. And once you taste it, superficial goals lose their grip. You still work. You still strive. You still dream. But you are no longer enslaved by outcomes. You move with intention instead of anxiety. Most people fear that discovering the real purpose of life will limit them, that it will take away their freedom. But the opposite is true. Living without purpose is the real prison. It traps you in endless wanting, endless comparison, endless dissatisfaction. Purpose does not shrink your life. It gives it direction. And direction is what turns movement into progress. There is a reason the heart never fully settles with temporary things. It was not designed to. There is a reason success does not silence the deeper questions. It was never meant to. These are not design flaws. They are clues. Clues pointing you back to something higher, something truer, something lasting. Ignoring those clues does not make them disappear. It only delays the moment when you are forced to confront them. At some point, everyone slows down. At some point, the noise fades. At some point, the applause stops. And in that quiet, the only thing that will matter is whether you lived in alignment with why you were created or whether you spent your life running from that truth. Purpose is not a luxury for the spiritual. It is a necessity for the human soul. Without it, even the best life feels incomplete. Most people do not realize that what exhausts them is not life itself, but the constant noise they allow to live inside them. Their minds are never quiet. Their hearts are never still. Even in moments of rest, they are scrolling, comparing, consuming, reacting. Silence feels uncomfortable because silence forces confrontation, and confrontation demands honesty. Distractions, on the other hand, feel productive, harmless, even deserved. They wear the mask of normality. Everyone is busy, everyone is entertained, everyone is chasing something. So no one stops to ask whether all this movement is actually taking them anywhere meaningful. Distraction is subtle. It does not announce itself as an enemy. It enters as relief, as a break, as a reward, as something you think you control. But slowly, it begins to control you. It steals hours, then days, then years, all while convincing you that you are just unwinding, just staying informed, just enjoying life. And before you know it, your attention is fragmented, your focus is shallow, and your heart feels strangely distant from itself. You are present everywhere except within. The heart was created to connect deeply, but distractions train it to skim the surface of everything. Relationships become shallow, reflection becomes rare, meaning becomes abstract. When the heart is constantly stimulated, it loses its sensitivity. Just like loud noise can damage hearing, constant mental noise damages spiritual awareness. You stop noticing what truly matters. You stop feeling the weight of your own existence. Life becomes something that happens to you instead of something you consciously live. People often think they are avoiding pain by distracting themselves, but what they are really avoiding is purpose. Purpose requires focus. It requires commitment. It requires sacrifice. And sacrifice feels heavy to a heart addicted to comfort. Distractions promise ease without responsibility. They allow you to feel busy without being intentional. They allow you to feel alive without being awake. This is why distraction is so dangerous. It keeps you occupied while slowly disconnecting you from what you were meant to become. Look at how quickly people reach for their phones in moments of boredom, sadness, or discomfort. Even a few seconds of stillness feels unbearable. But boredom is not the enemy. Boredom is often the doorway. It is the space where questions arise. It is where reflection begins. It is where the soul whispers. When that doorway is constantly shut with noise, the soul learns to stay silent, not because it has nothing to say, but because it is never listened to. Distractions create the illusion of fulfillment. You feel entertained, stimulated, informed. But once the screen turns off, once the noise fades, the emptiness returns. This is because distraction feeds the senses, not the soul. And the soul cannot survive on stimulation alone. It needs meaning. It needs direction. It needs truth. Without these, no amount of entertainment can bring peace. Many people confuse peace with comfort. Comfort is temporary and external. Peace is internal and rooted. Distractions are excellent at providing comfort, but they are incapable of providing peace. In fact, the more distracted a person becomes, the more anxious they often feel. Their thoughts race. Their patience shrinks. Their tolerance for silence disappears. They feel overwhelmed without knowing why. They feel tired without understanding what is draining them. Distraction also shapes desires. It trains you to want what is flashy, immediate, and easy. Purpose, however, is rarely flashy. It is often quiet. It grows slowly. It requires patience. In a world that celebrates instant results, anything slow feels wrong. But some of the most meaningful transformations happen beneath the surface, unseen, unnoticed. Distractions pull your attention upward and outward, while purpose asks you to look inward and downward to build foundations instead of chasing appearances. There is a reason why clarity often comes in moments of isolation, loss, or stillness. When distractions are stripped away, truth becomes unavoidable. People fear these moments, but they are often the most honest moments of their lives. The question is not whether truth will come, but whether you will listen when it does. If distractions dominate your life, truth will knock quietly while noise screams louder. The modern world rewards distraction. It rewards constant engagement, constant output, constant reaction. Silence is mistaken for laziness. Reflection is mistaken for weakness. Depth is mistaken for irrelevance. But just because something is rewarded does not mean it is right. Just because something is common does not mean it is healthy. The cost of distraction is not always immediate, but it is always real. When people do not know their purpose, they become more vulnerable to distraction. Because when you lack direction, anything can pull you. When you lack meaning, anything can entertain you. Purpose acts like an anchor. It does not remove the waves, but it keeps you from drifting. Without it, every trend, every opinion, every desire has the power to move you. You become reactive instead of intentional. You consume instead of choose. Distractions also numb conviction. When you are constantly consuming, you stop questioning. You accept narratives without reflection. You absorb values without examination. Over time, you forget which thoughts are yours and which were planted. Purpose requires discernment, and discernment requires pause. Without pause, everything blends together and truth loses its sharpness. Many people say they are searching for purpose, but their habits say otherwise. They fill every empty moment with noise. They avoid being alone. They avoid silence. They avoid journaling, reflection, prayer, deep thought, or honest conversation. Purpose is not hidden from those who seek it sincerely. It is hidden from those who are too distracted to notice it. Distraction does not just waste time, it shapes identity. What you repeatedly give your attention to eventually shapes what you value, and what you value shapes who you become. If your attention is constantly given to trivial things, your inner world will slowly reflect that triviality. You may still function. You may still succeed outwardly, but inwardly you will feel shallow, scattered, and disconnected. There is a difference between rest and escape. Rest restores you. Escape avoids you. Distractions often masquerade as rest, but leave you more tired than before. True rest often requires facing what you have been avoiding. It requires honesty. It requires slowing down enough to feel what you feel instead of drowning it out. Purpose is often revealed in these moments of honest rest, not in endless consumption. People often ask why they feel unmotivated, uninspired, or spiritually dry. Rarely do they examine how distracted they are. A heart that is constantly overstimulated cannot sustain inspiration. Inspiration needs space. It needs quiet. It needs depth. Just as soil needs time undisturbed to grow roots, the soul needs time free from noise to grow purpose. Distraction also affects how people perceive success. Success becomes about visibility instead of impact, about recognition instead of alignment, about speed instead of substance. Purpose-driven lives may not always look impressive on the surface, but they carry a depth that distraction-driven lives lack. One is rooted, the other is scattered. It is easy to blame external factors for emptiness, to blame circumstances, people, systems. But often the emptiness is self-inflicted through neglect. Neglect of reflection, neglect of silence, Neglect of intentional living. Purpose does not disappear. It waits. It waits patiently beneath the noise, beneath the habits, beneath the distractions, waiting for you to slow down enough to hear it. Many people are afraid that without distractions, they will be forced to face their failures, regrets, or fears. And that fear keeps them trapped. But what they do not realize is that avoiding these things gives them power. Facing them weakens their hold. Purpose is not found in pretending everything is fine. It is found in honesty, humility, and willingness to grow. Distraction keeps people living on autopilot. Purpose requires manual control. Autopilot is comfortable. You do what everyone else is doing. You think what everyone else is thinking. You chase what everyone else is chasing. Manual control is exhausting at first because it requires intention, but it is also freeing because it returns ownership of life back to you. The more distracted a person is, the more reactive they become. Little things upset them. Delays frustrate them. Silence irritates them. This is because their inner world has no anchor. Purpose stabilizes emotions. It does not eliminate pain, but it gives pain context. Without purpose, even minor inconveniences feel overwhelming. People often underestimate the power of small, consistent distractions. A few minutes here, a few hours there. Over time, they accumulate into a life that feels rushed yet unfulfilled. Not because there was no time, but because time was never used intentionally. Purpose is not about doing more. It is about doing what matters. There is a reason why some of the most grounded people appear less entertained. It is not because they lack joy. It is because their joy comes from depth, not distraction. They are not constantly seeking stimulation because they are anchored in meaning. They can sit with themselves without panic. They can be alone without feeling lonely. Distraction thrives where purpose is unclear, and purpose becomes clearer when distraction is reduced. This is not about eliminating enjoyment or pleasure. It is about restoring balance, about choosing rather than reacting, about creating space for the soul to speak again. When distractions are removed, questions surface. Who am I becoming? What am I living for? What truly matters? These questions are uncomfortable, but they are necessary. Avoiding them does not make them disappear. It only delays the answers. A distracted life is often a loud life, but not a fulfilled one. Purpose does not shout. It whispers, and only those who quiet their inner noise can hear it. The tragedy is not that people never find their purpose. It is that many are too distracted to even look for it, mistaking noise for life, stimulation for meaning, movement for progress, until years pass and the heart quietly wonders how it traveled so far without ever arriving.